And Dr. John Newman, a local pastor and political consultant, is joining us on the morning show this morning with his analysis, of course, of the candidate's performance last night. We saw the CNN ORC poll. Those who were watching, according to those that were interviewed by CNN, felt that Hillary Clinton was the clear-handed winner here. What was your opinion in terms of the winner and the losers last night?
I thought that probably reflected what was reality. I thought that at the beginning of the debate, Donald Trump was pretty even-keeled, relatively strong. But as it progressed, I think that it went kind of downhill for him. I think Hillary was pretty even in demeanor and her composition the entire time.
Let's talk about the issues, because I really felt in watching this last night that we heard more of the candidates' stances on the issues than the other debates, which quite frankly have really been yelling at one another and interrupting one another. We really got a clear sense of that. So I'd like to, we've got some clips from last night, really so that our viewers who are maybe undecided have a better idea of where each candidate stands. The first one specifically was on abortion, when each candidate really brought up the late-term abortions and their stance on those. Let's listen.
Because based on what she's saying and based on where she's going and where she's been, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month. On the final day.
This is one of the worst possible choices that any woman and her family has to make. And I do not believe the government should be making it.
Okay, so certainly this is an issue that divides the party, quite frankly, and it's important for people to understand, and why this specific topic was brought up is because the reality is there is one Supreme Court justice position that is still available. It has not been filled, obviously, as we've been following for several months, but it's very likely that whomever is elected will make decisions as to who could fill 3 or 4 more Supreme Court justice positions because of the age of the certain court. Do people understand that this is more than just president, but also long-term ramifications based on how the court sways with things like Roe v. Wade?
And certainly there are a lot of people who are not particularly happy with voting for Donald Trump, but they believe that he will appoint judges that are more pro-life. And so those on the more progressive side think that the document is the living, breathing document as the Constitution, and the judges should reflect cultural changes. And it's a very, very sensitive topic, abortion, because you have people who really believe that it's a woman's right to determine what she does with her body. Then there are others who believe that there is a moral foundation, that it is a life, and that life needs to be protected. And so the voters have to recognize that there are implications on both sides as to who gets elected, because it's more than just a presidency. It's more than just who can set policy. It's about who can direct the future of the Supreme Court itself. And
not just certainly on Roe v. Wade, but also on the Second Amendment, as you heard last night.
Absolutely.
Let's move on also now to each of them and their stance on immigration, because that has certainly also been a hot button topic. Let's listen in.
I want to build the wall. We need the wall. The Border Patrol, ICE, they all want the wall. We stop the drugs. We shore up the border. One of my first acts will be to get all of the drug lords, all of the bad ones. We have some bad people in this country that have to go out.
We have 11 million undocumented people. They have 4 million American citizen children, 15 million people. He said as recently as a few weeks ago in Phoenix that every undocumented person would be subject to deportation. Now, here's what that means. It means you would have to have a massive law enforcement presence, where law enforcement officers would be going school to school, home to home, business to business, rounding up people who are undocumented.
Now, did either candidate win over undecided voters with their comments on immigration, do you think, last night?
It's hard to say because so much is baked in already.
Yeah.
It really is. But I do think that it highlights the delineation. There are those who believe that we cannot have a country without providing security for our borders. Without that, it's just an open border and anybody can get in, particularly with the influence of persons coming from other parts of the world, and there's a concern about vetting them properly. On the other hand, we are a nation of immigrants. So we have to kind of find a way to vet people, make sure that we're balanced in terms of our security apparatus. But at the same time, we are a country that is better because of our diversity. And so I think people have to weigh where they are on that issue, security versus being a diverse country.
And very quickly, because this has been certainly something that many people have talked about for the last 2 or 3 weeks, in fact, is allegations of sexual misconduct when it comes to Donald Trump. Here's how each of them addressed that last night.
Donald thinks belittling women makes him bigger. He goes after their dignity, their self-worth, And I don't think there is a woman anywhere who doesn't know what that feels like.
Nobody has more respect for women than I do. Nobody. Nobody has more respect.
Please, everybody.
And frankly, those stories have been largely debunked.
Think that Donald Trump was effective last night in repairing the damage based on these allegations we've seen over the last 2 or 3 weeks?
No, John, I don't, because he contradicted his wife. He said that I didn't even apologize to my wife because I did nothing. And then yet she did an interview where she said, Donald apologized to me for his behavior. So when you contradict your wife and you're trying to appeal to women, that's not a good way to do it. He did not close that issue, and sadly, it's going to continue throughout the rest of this campaign season.
Pastor, thank you very much, John Newman, for being here for your analysis. Do appreciate it.